Mr. Drew.
Good
Please
afternoon.
state your name and affiliation for the record.
John Drew, President, CEO of ABCD, Action for Boston Community Development. And I have been with ABCD and doing the work we do a long time. In fact, I go back to meeting Chuck at Circle Associates over 43 years ago when he was trying to find pools of cash to help make loans. And he's done it ever since. I also was, since we're reminiscent, I was over in 1999 when I heard President Mandela, before he was president, say to the students at Madison Park, stay in school. The future is about you. Unfortunately, that's not happened. I have with me my colleagues. Hopefully, I won't take too much time because they have more to say than I do. But I want to thank you very much for having this session and hopefully more of them. It is appropriately named the Committee on Women. 85% of the families of the hundreds of thousands of people we see are headed by women. The casualties of poverty are male, but they're primarily female and children. We are on the streets every day because we're open in 70 places here in Greater Boston. Trying to put together a picture for you while I'm here is difficult because for over 40 years, I have seen what could work and what has worked, and I've also seen what hasn't worked. What's not working now is we're locked in place. The politics of national politics are horrible. We're locked in place. We are seeing the homeless families that were mentioned because we run homeless shelters. More and more families coming into homelessness. They can't get into public housing because nobody in public housing is moving out. And that's a tragedy because we have permanent poverty by having generations in public housing here and throughout the country. It is not their fault, but if they are not able to get out and move on, we can't get somebody else in. And my uncles come back from World War II and all went into Old Colony for 3 or 4 years and then got out. So that barrier in housing called public housing is, in my feeling, is not being looked at in a way that would say, how can we use this housing? How can we take care of these folks? How can we intergenerationally help them move out? First month, last month, tough. It's easier sometimes after you've been there a while to say, I got someplace. But you're in permanent poverty. You're not likely to have a job. If you have a job, you're not going to make a lot of money because it'll knock you out of your house. Your children are seeing the same thing. So to me, we're essentially locking in place people, while at the same time, I go back on my experience in the 60s and the 70s and 80s and 90s. And this is where, to me, the city council, to me, the biggest reason I'm here today, largest reason. I mean, I brought a lot of numbers, and they are great. We're giving them to you. We've got a lot of experience. We've got people at our door right now lined up because they can't heat there. A third of them are elderly. But what's missing is opportunity. While the city council in 84 and 86 and 90, along with Byron Russian, talked about apartheid and Nelson Mandela, it is time for the city councilors of the nation to go to Washington and say, where is the urban policy of this country? Where is the urban policy that we've had in the past when ABCD was able to put 5,000 youngsters to work, including my friend in the council? And they were there each and every year, low income, good jobs, 14, 15, 16. They were counselors, and then they had college students counseling them. They went on. Last year, we had 800, no federal money. The sequestration has cut us back on Section 8s. I had to lay off 300 4-year-old Head Start kids. So we're going backwards. We're locking everything in place. So what we do every day is do the best we can with the cards that are dealt. I would only make one addition to this. It's wonderful. I mean, it really is. You lay things out. It says City Council invests relationship between unemployment, poverty, and crime. I would put inequality in here. Inequality. It's about racism and sexism. And people are being left behind because that's the way it's always been. We haven't made an effort to bring all of our brothers and sisters the opportunity. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm saying we could do better with the school department. I am an advocate of an elected school department, elected school board. There's no parent participation. In our Head Start program, every parent participates. I can't hire a teacher unless they say yes. Nor can I fire a teacher unless they say yes. So we don't have our community participating in a way that they can talk for themselves. They're just being marginalized. Families being marginalized back into shelters. And quite frankly, the solutions are horrible because the state and the city really doesn't have the kind of resources. So in order to empty the hotel motels you heard about, 3,000 families, they're talking about congregate housing, putting 4 families in one apartment. These are not solutions. These are just means of saying we've done something. Now, I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to say I've had a lot of years of experience. I grew up in the projects. I went back into projects at one time for 3 years while I was unemployed, and my back was out, and I come out. I get up in the morning, and I realized I wasn't going anyplace, and I had to fight my way out of the doorway. Gets you to be tough, but it also says to you, what's tomorrow? Where am I going? Where's the opportunity? Is anybody encouraging me? And if you're not, then you're discouraged. If your family's dysfunctional, whatever it is, which we see all the time. So we really need to interdict, in my opinion, at the family level. We try to do it all the time. We need to get families to the point where they feel they have an opportunity. Health is important. Employment is important. But when you have a statistic like we got from Andy Summer, Northeastern, 95% of the black youth high school dropouts are unemployed. The only way, in my opinion, that's what I'm here for, give you my opinion, is to get the country to invest in them by giving them their first job. We also, during these past decades, with others, have run employment programs, training programs, adult basic education programs. People come in at 4th grade reading. We get them up. We're able to get people jobs. We work with many people to get them the GED, the credential. We created a college. We have 2 high schools. Last year, the state, in their wisdom, eliminated all our programs. I've got 1 training program and no GED, no basic ed. So are we going to get the school department to step up to the plate in the next administration and start having night school for the adults? How are the adults going to, you go into any classroom, you come into my place, 50% or more of the children are English second language. Their parents who go through our ESL program are just learning. They can't be advocates for their child in school if they can't speak English. They can't help their children at home. There's so many things that can be done with what we have, meaning redirect some of our resources. And we should. But to do the big things, it's time we had a national debate that all the urban, rural, local officials like yourself say, we've had enough. You're not investing in the cities. What you're investing in the cities is to allow people to buy high-priced condos and to jack the rents up. Back in the day, a while back, when we went through a similar development phase, we had something called linkage. Money came in from every developer into a pot. And we at ABCD and others could compete to run training programs for people in the community, link back to the community. I haven't seen any of that money, not a dime. I've seen of linkage money coming back to people who have been left behind because of the development that's raising their rents and not giving them jobs. There's things we can do locally. The next mayor's got his hands full. The next council. I love the idea that the mayor says, I want the city council to have more of a role. I'm in an age, and have done this long, that I feel I can speak out and say, we're not doing good. We are not doing good. We're leaving too many people behind. The promise of America is being eroded. We're allowing national politics to dictate that, unfortunately. We can take this country back. We want to. If we can, we push it. We have too many bright youngsters. See them all the time. In our city, black, white, Hispanic. With the lights in their eyes and our Head Start. And when they went 13-year-old this summer, we had a program, and when they're 14. But the light goes out of their eyes when there's nothing in front of them. When they go to school and nobody says, hey, did you ever think about college? You ever think about this or that? It's not their fault that we have stopped investing in our children. It's not their fault that their parents are not finding jobs. The economy that pushes all the money up to the top, nobody should argue with me about that, and takes all the jobs in the middle out so that profits can go up. I can't solve that. That's politicians at a big level. But unless we deal with that, we're going to have a country more look like South Africa than the United States, in my opinion. Because we can't continue to have this separation. The margins, the woman that gets up in the morning, I know, at 5 o'clock, tries to take her 2 children someplace where she goes to work with 2 buses on her feet for 8 hours. And if she comes back at night, 2 buses, tries to pick up her children, can't get sick, lose the job. Can't be late, lose the job. And if she loses the job, she loses her housing. But she's also not there when the school says, hey, why don't you come up at 2 o'clock and have a parent meeting? She's kind of tired at night when she's got to get back to bed to get up at 5 o'clock. She is the most courageous person we have in this city because she's trying her best to keep them together. But where's the help that she needs? We try. We have some daycare for her if she can get that. Come to our food pantry and get a bag of food. But how about the next step is, how do we, if you have a language issue, how do we get you into a program where you can speak better? How can we help you advocate for yourself? You're defenseless. You go to work and your employer knows that you need that job. So we have thousands and thousands, I call them heroes. We see them every day. Heating assistants. If you're working, 5,000 tax returns we did last year for get that income tax credit into the household. And we'll keep doing that because that's what we do. But boy, I would love some ammunition. I would like a national policy that says every child should get a job in the summer. Every adult should get a public service job if a community service job, if there's no job in the private sector. Everybody should work and contribute to the community. Sorry, I get emotional. Because I hate to see lives being thrown away. When we saw in the past so many of those bright eyes of kids who went into the computer class or worked with Verizon or went here or there, and at the end of it, they went home with the paycheck and gave it to their mom. We only had 800 last year and 5,000 applied. How long can we continue to do this? I'll turn it over to my colleagues, but I know I probably didn't give you a lot of facts and figures. They're in here, and you are right on. And maybe this is the new way we'll do it. Maybe you will be the clarion call for the rest of the country to go tell those folks in Washington, hey, this is a country for all of us, not just a few. Thank you.
Mr. Drew, thank you. Compelling, sobering testimony and very wise. I'm not sure if either Councilor Yancey or Jackson have any questions.
No question. Just want to thank John Drew for his testimony and to just summarize my observation. I said that Robert Cord would have been very proud of you this afternoon.
Thank you. Well, I loved him dearly. So.
Councilor Jackson?
Thank you.
All right. Your name and affiliation for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Scott Chandler, and I'm Executive Vice President at ABCD. I first wanted to begin by saying, as others have, that I appreciate your having this hearing and bringing these issues. It is critically important, and we are honored to be a partner in trying to address and really deal with the issues of poverty, unemployment, all of those. Secondly, the Boston Public Health Commission raised also some really good issues and policy recommendations, echoing their highlighting the minimum wage and safety net, affordable housing. Those are all things that we deal with and support. I'm going to touch on a couple things that John also highlighted as critical as we move forward. And one is our need to renew the investment in the workforce development arena, both adult and youth. We know that there aren't enough jobs out there for everyone, and including, in terms of the youth, vocational training and getting youth into other areas if they're not able to go to college. So really expanding the job and the employment opportunities for youth in all areas, and adult workforce and adult skills training, everything from GED to ESOL to jobs-based training. That leads me to needing to really make the connection for those programs and those skills development, connecting them to the jobs that are available or that will be in the future, whether that's healthcare, whether that's education, whether that's high tech, matching those skills and those workforce development investments to the jobs that are here so that the people in the communities can get those jobs, and we don't need to import people from outside to take jobs and have jobs, as well as small business and businesses and making sure that businesses are in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, the areas where it's easier to get a job. I mean, transportation is a huge issue for our communities in terms of getting to the job. If you have to take 3 buses to get to the job, it's a lot more challenging than being able to work in businesses in your own community. Another thing I'd like to highlight is the focus on early childhood education, and particularly community-based early childhood comprehensive programs like Head Start, and John mentioned things like early intervention, things that deal with 2 generations of families who are in poverty. So you're dealing both with children who need the skills and closing the achievement gap later on in life, but you also are working with families who at the same time are trying to deal with and raise themselves out of poverty. And those kinds of programs are really what we need to make a further investment and a real effort to invest in. And last, John mentioned also parent involvement. Those programs are also very empowering for parents, so that then when they move on to the Boston Public Schools, to looking for college for their kids, they're invested and able and understand how to deal with the school system and educational institutions on behalf of their children. They are the best advocates for their children, and these are the kinds of programs that give parents the tools to do that. Lastly, John mentioned it as well. I mean, thinking about planning and policies that incentivize people to increase their wages and grow, and that includes everything from looking at the public housing or childcare and subsidies that as soon as you take your increase or your salary increase, or as soon as you work overtime, you are at risk of losing a child care subsidy, you're at risk of losing your housing. Those kinds of, if we can think about creative ways to really incentivize people to be able to get off that, whether it's gradually or what have you, I think that's huge. And we don't, because there are limited resources, it's always, okay, at this poverty level, that's where you lose the subsidy. And we really need to think outside the box on that, because I think it's a barrier for people moving. Other things in terms of incentivizing, the EITC program, obviously giving folks back money and investing in the community when they're working and they're low income. Thinking about planning of communities and neighborhoods, businesses that, again, are not keeping people in poverty, and that might include check cashing and businesses that aren't as promoting of healthy living. In suburban communities, you have farmers markets, you have, healthy food eating, and we need to have that kind of stuff. We have a little bit of it, but we need to have more of it, and we need to incentivize people to bring that into the communities. So going back to the health, that the health of our communities is also improving and increasing. So I think, again, I thank you for really highlighting this issue. Maybe you're starting a movement for all of us to have a bigger, louder conversation about inequality, about poverty and the impacts, and sharing in the wealth that Boston has really had over these last few years. And we're, again, happy to be a partner in moving forward on it.
Thank you for your strength of advocacy and your good work every day, and for your testimony here today. Councilor Yancey or Jackson, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Michael?
Thank you. My name is Mike Vance, and I'm the Vice President of Field Operations. I work with all of the different neighborhood sites that ABCD has. And we have about 14 sites. We represent almost every single neighborhood, from South Boston, East Boston, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, et cetera. And I, too, want to just say thank you for having this discussion about poverty and having us come in to participate, because it is very, very important. I just have a couple quick comments. My day started this morning with my son, who said to me, he works at the Roxbury Boys and Girls Club, and he says, "Hey, Dad, I got one of my teens who has a real problem with eating, with meals, with food. What do I do? I know you run food pantries. I know you have food pantries all over the city." She lives in public housing. Transportation is an issue. Her only real meal she gets is either at school or when she comes to the club. But the rest of the family is struggling. Do you have a food pantry? I mean, obviously he knows what I've been doing for the last 20 years. So he knows we have 6 or 7 food pantries all over the city. But how does she get there if money is an issue? She worked for ABCD in the summer, but that money is gone. That money is long gone that she saved to make a difference in her family. But that's how the day started, just talking about what we do every single day at ABCD. And obviously we can help the family. But sometimes in Boston, the poverty is just not that blatant that you would know. I mean, this young lady goes to school, to the club, ABCD programs, whatever, and you would never know that they're struggling just to eat. And those are just the basic emergency services, and that's the real poverty in the city. As I said in the beginning, we have 6, and we support a 7th food pantry in Roxbury. And just to see people with hat in hand, especially at the holiday time, at your event, the line, when you gave out 1,000 turkeys the other day, the line was out the door, around the corner, down the street. It was very orderly, but it was also very sad, because if all you have to do is drive around, you go past all of our food pantries, you go past all the churches, You go past everywhere on Saturday where they're giving out food, and you see people in surprisingly good mood, but with bags, waiting, lining up for a turkey, food, what have you. And it just seems like in the city that's this rich that we shouldn't have these issues, and it just breaks my heart. But that's what we do every single day, and we're going to continue to do. But with cuts and everything else, it makes it just extremely difficult. So I wanted to talk briefly about that. And then the last piece is just to add to that policy discussion that the Public Health Commission gave. I thought those were great things. But I just want to add a couple quick things. Reentry and Corey, those are huge. We have a couple programs that focus our South End program. It has to be a policy issue. What are we going to do? How do we do it? How do we make it happen? Because that leads to more underemployment, unemployment, et cetera. And that cycle, ABCD is going to continue to be involved, but that is something that the city has to thoroughly embrace. Protect, I need to help protect the food pantries, the brown bag programs, because even though those aren't training, if people can't eat, they can't sit in a training program, they can't sit in school, we have to protect our food pantry programs and our brown bag programs. The effects of our citizenship program, we do citizenship days in Parker Hill, in Mission Hill. Mm-hmm. We've done it in Dorchester. We've done it in Jamaica Plain. We have helped hundreds of folks obtain legal citizenship, and their ability to get good jobs or jobs, period, is critical. And I think that that's a policy area that I would love to see the city embrace more citizenship going forward. And I think it's going to be a hot topic in the next presidential or even in the next congressional. It's a major issue, and I think John Drew and Sharon and ABCD has taken a stance that we're going to continue to help people get legal citizenship, and that is just critical for all of us. And the last thing is our foreclosure program that we run in Mattapan, which is really citywide, but and it's funded by the city. We need to support and protect and make sure that that continues, because that is very, very critical in the communities that I serve, in the community that I live in. I'm from Mattapan, in Dorchester, where we have the highest rates of foreclosure in this city. We need to protect those. So I just wanted to throw those things out on the table and let you know that myself, my directors and managers would be willing to be on any committee and go to any meeting and continue to talk about these issues that are important to us at ABCD.
Thank you very much, Michael Vance, and thank you for your many years of service and commitment. Councilor Jackson, do you have any questions or comments?
I would just note I actually attended Head Start on Geneva Ave when I was a young person, so I do need to disclose that information. And I did your point about hunger. Is also in this mix. What we found is that about 20%, and there's a new word, food instability. Yeah. I'm a big guy, so still call it hunger. It's hunger. And this year, we actually started out with doing 1,200 turkeys this year, but we ended up